Hi, I'm Abbey Corbin. I'm based in York and I'm part of the YSI Sculpture Network. When I was at the GSA, I started looking at waste packaging and like sort of everyday objects that I could then start to work with to create different forms, like through assemblage. And I was thinking sort of about making and growing and that sort of relationship between materials and our environment. So I started creating all these different organic forms and then assembling them together to then cast them. So it was sort of to do with the sort of cyclical processes as well, like rebirth and regeneration and sort of how things might grow in the future. I would sort of mapped out a sort of space which had sort of little areas of exploration. So it's on my website, so you can click on each of the locations and then it'll take you to a page with all sort of artifacts, like what kind of things live there and that kind of thing. It's got soundscapes that go with it and video works and that kind of thing, so it's quite a bit experimental, but it felt like it brought together all the different sort of tangents of thought and things quite well. So I drew it by hand in ink and then I put it in Photoshop. So on the right you can sort of see similar forms in the corners. So I'd like the same way I was doing in my artwork, I mirrored things and sort of collage things to sort of grow the environment as well. So it's crossover between like, again, hand making and then digital making and where that fits in sculptural practice. On the right, it's sort of like a scan of one of the sculptures, which I think sort of gets that deep sea kind of like discovery kind of feel, also like archives and documentaries and that kind of thing. And then I was sort of thinking about mutations and things multiplying and the materials that are like multiplying in our oceans, and then in the same way that toxic materials in our oceans might affect the creatures that live there. So how that might mean that they adapt to the environment and how their sort of DNA and makeup might multiply in different ways. I also like to sort of repurpose the ideas as well as the materials. So on the right, it's a photograph of our exhibition at Strata, where I repurposed a piece of work that I was working on for the exhibition before that and sort of built on it and created it into something new. These were ones that I made for my undergraduate degree show, and then I repurposed them to make these things called molluscas, which is sort of thinking about the clustering of plaster and the way that sort of like mussels or oysters might grow on ropes. So all of this sort of also came from when I was spending a lot of time on the northeast coast. So I'd take the sculptures that I'd made and collect things and sort of see how they interact with the environment there. Looks like the sort of remnants of what I was imagining in our future, kind of things left on the beach or growing and popping up from the beach. I also like to use the casts and like molds of things as well. So when I make sort of silicone molds, they'll remind me of sort of like skins and things. And then this is actually the outer like shell of the squid cast. So I like to use those to sort of be part of the work as well, even though they're more process based. I feel like they still like are quite beautiful and like gritty and have that contrast with the sort of final product version sometimes. It also reminds me of sort of that sort of shell and like rebirth or like a home, nesting, those kind of words as well. And then part of what I was doing while I was like testing out the works in different environments, I only sort of did a little bit on like foresty environments and sort of earthy spaces. So I think I'd like to try and explore that a bit more because I focus a lot on like deep sea. So hopefully in the future I'd like to explore different kinds of ecosystems and environments and sort of habitats and that kind of thing. So yeah.